So good afternoon, folks, and welcome to the final episode of the series. Very interesting series called Let's Talk Retail. We've had a look at multiple disciplines over the past 4 days. Today is the 5th day. And today we will probably look at something which is, according to me, one of the most important functions or disciplines within the retail segment, which is supply chain. More often than not, supply chain is not really the sexiest of all disciplines, right? I mean, I would kind of, compare the supply chain to the back of our body, which is a very, very important muscle, but the most, the muscle that's given the least attention because you've got so many other muscle types to kind of flaunt and work on. But more often than not, it's the back that kind of, holds you up steady. And that's what's proven actually in these COVID times as well. And to discuss in terms of how this COVID scenario today has impacted supply chain, to figure out or understand whether supply chain has actually risen to the expectations of this pandemic. It's been a black swan event for us. No one has probably ever gone through an event like this. So it was a new experience for almost every actor in this game. And so was also supply chain. And we'll again, last but not the least, kind of have a small discussion in terms of how post-COVID supply chain is going to be the same resilient force that it has been so far, and what are the roles and the duties that the multiple stakeholders can play in it. So if this sounds interesting, let me quickly give you a snapshot in terms of who we have here on the panel. I would request them to give a very, very short and brief introduction about themselves. We've got folks who've been veterans in this area of supply chain management. They know a few things about supply chain and have been in the thick of action in the past few weeks. So Anirudh, can I start with you with a very brief introduction about yourself, what you do, the company that you represent, and the discipline that you belong to?
Hi. My name is Anirudh Banerjee. So I have around 20 odd years experience. Basically, first 10 years into FMCG sales, I work for Coke, Marico Industries, and Tata Chemicals salt business. And then first 10 years into retail and consumer retail. In consumer retail also, I was in merchandising and then business operation. And last 3 years, me and my team are handling the Spencer's retail and Nature Baskets supply chain. So we manage categories across food, general merchandise, electronics, apparel, and this is the most challenging time after GST, and the team is on toes day because the scenarios are emerging and changing.
Fantastic, Anirudh. Thanks so much for joining us. Since you manage both Spencer's and Nature's Basket, I guess you've seen both the essentials and the non-essential side of the business as well. Right. So we'll probably pick your brains on that a little more. Vishesh, if you could go next.
Sure. So hi everyone, my name is Vishesh Khurana. I am a co-founder at a company called ShipRocket, which is a logistics aggregation platform. We help SMEs or D2C e-commerce players ship their products. And the company is over 8 years old. So yeah, we've been doing this for a while now in terms of managing and supply chain and sorting that up.
Okay, thank you so much, Vishesh. Look forward to your inputs on the discussion. Shashank, if I may request you to go next.
Yeah, sure. So thanks, Shizu, for having me here. I'm a former Lalamove executive, and currently I'm on a stealth mode. I'm working on founding my own company called Shush.com, which is a hyper local on-demand sort of a service. While working with Lalamove, I have been more into hyper local on-demand sort of a logistics, which briefly works in a last mile space. And because of this COVID effect, the most affected area of the logistic is the last mile, because that is something that is connected with the end user. So the business shut. To be very honest, it's a bitter truth. The business shut. Although we have essential service active, but that's on a very limited scale. And again, by saying that, people have to interact with other humans if you are going to deal with last mile. So COVID have a huge impact on last mile logistics. Yeah, over to you.
Okay, perfect. Welcome, Shashank. And to folks who heard of Lalamove and you think it's a small entity somewhere in the bylands of a business community, you'll be actually very, very mistaken. It's a large conglomerate based out of Hong Kong.
Exactly.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Shashank.
No, exactly.
And I've been a victim of the same. So don't feel bad about it, folks. If you believe, that Lala Move actually relates to Lala, but yeah, it's a large supply chain company.
Exactly.
Last but not the least, Ishu Bansal, a quick word from you. Ishu, probably you're on mute.
Thanks, Iju, for having me here. I run company Trucksovida. We are into the 3 metric ton and above intercity logistics. So anyone who is looking for truck, they can book through us. Yes, COVID has some impact onto the business, but like for the essentials movement, where all the other players are into the e-commerce and last mile delivery, for getting the things to the warehouses and the movement from factories, Trucksovida is the place where people can look in. Over to you, Siju.
Cool. Thanks so much for joining us, Ishu. So today we have Anirudh, who kind of represents the customer from a supply chain perspective, and you also have service providers like Vishesh, Shashank, and Ishu. So probably we'll understand from them as to how the other party could have done a little better to make things life easier for themselves, during this time of the crisis. But just to kickstart things, Anirudh, you are in charge of Spencer's and Nature's Basket from a supply chain perspective. What were the immediate challenges that you faced when the COVID lockdown was announced?
See, frankly speaking, we got some time. And personally, I was on my annual holiday, and this was the most hectic personal holiday where I have invested most of the time into business. Because we are sensing something is coming. So though it had started probably 22nd, 23rd March, but my holidays start from 12th or 13th March, and we are sensing something from the day I reached the Calcutta airport, from there to Chandigarh, from there to Srinagar, and on my way, I could have sensed something is happening. News are also coming. So we that actually, when I was traveling across the region, that gave me a good heads up that we should get prepared. So immediately what we did, we have changed our all algorithm related to staples, commodities, and essentials. There was no announcement from the government, by that time. So that helped us to get the inventory, to prepare ourselves from 15 to say 22nd, when there was no labor problem, no vehicle movement, no restriction itself. So we are among few retailers who have not faced any kind of essential commodity crunch from beginning till today. Even from day one till today, we are our almost 90% stores across 17 cities, 17 states and 45 cities are running. Yes, there are few on and off. We are getting shot in some store because of containment zone or red zone, but we are bouncing back in 4 to 5 days. And as we progress, I will tell you how we are doing that. So the initial challenge for me was, first of all, employees, because inventory was not a challenge for me. How I can give confidence to my large workforce, diversified workforce, spread across geography, impacted differently, but still, stay still tuned with the overall corporate goal or the requirement of the customer. So that was one challenge. But immediately the lockdown started, the labor problem started. The migratory labor and other issues came up at the end of March. But that's also settled down in 2 to 3 days time. So most of the time, probably 50% of our daily call, our business review was spending on safety and health of my staff. Because under this scenario, they are on their toes, and only the machinery will run. Otherwise, there will be problem. So these are few priorities which we have set, and we are navigating through that. When I'm saying the safety and health of my employee, that includes a large workforce who are also the housekeepers, who are the transporter, who are the driver agencies, and around 2,500 vendor supply force. They are connecting, and if that interaction between vendor suppliers and my distribution center is not protected, then I'll also get hit. So if truly a supply chain, if one leg gets impacted, consumer will get impacted at store. So
okay, so a couple of questions to the other folks. Yeah, a couple of questions to other folks. Could you hear Anirudh clearly, or was there a break in the voice? Hello, could the others hear Anirudh clearly, or was there a break?
Yeah, I could. There was a small break, yeah, but yeah, I think overall we could. It was okay. We could understand.
Okay, fair enough. Now, Ishu, coming to you, so where were you in your phase in terms of you had already moved out of Lalamove and you've been in your stealth mode, or were you with Lalamove when this whole thing happened?
Yeah, I think you're talking to me. So yeah, I left Lalamove in the last week of Feb, and that time we didn't had any effect of COVID, right? And after leaving Lalamove, I aggressively started working on my own product. With that also, I was in association with several other startups in the supply chain domain as a consultant. So it took me a name of Wizard. Wizard is one of the leading vendor for Amazon in India, and they are doing massive last mile deliveries for Amazon in India. Their business have been impacted a lot because Amazon used to follow the restrictions, and they used to follow the norms very well, right? And ever since this the outbreak had happened, all the deliveries got shut. And again, the government initiated the efforts to stop all the deliveries at that time. Later on, they started the essential part, but again, the issue came up with the supply, right? We used to work with a lot of folks on a per shipment sort of a pricing model, right? And the moment this outbreak happened, the entire supply got crunched, right? We saw a lot of churn with the supply ratio. We talk about the bikers, or we talk about the four-wheelers. Now this effect, the effect of churning of supply is so big that we are not even able to cater the entire shipments of essential commodities. Now Amazon have a lot of things which can come under the essential supply, but because of the constraint of supply, we are not able to do that. Right.
So I think the percentage, so Shashank, if I might just interrupt you here, what percentage of consignments, were essential supplies, if you were to look at it from a numbers perspective?
Well, to be very honest, if we compare the inventory that Amazon have and the number of orders they are fulfilling, it is 50-50. Right? They have enough inventory, but they are not able to supply it because of the manpower crunch. Plus, the people are not very sure of ordering product on online platforms, right? So that's another thing. Amazon have inventory, but people are not ordering on that. Though the supply chain is running with Amazon, but the speed is again, there is another concern with the speed. The Amazon used to have a very fast paced speed of catering the entire supply chain. Now, because of this effect, they don't have a lot of automatization in India, right? People are working on a manual sort of a mode. Because of this pandemic effect, and people have to make a sort of distance with each other, the speed of doing the entire sorting and fulfillment have been reduced drastically, and that is something that is impacting the volume again. So the three things: the supply churn, people are not adapting this. Plus, the speed has been reduced. So these are three impacts that. Please.
We'll come to that in a little more detail.
Sure.
Shashank, right? Because that's a crucial aspect. People talk about social distancing, but the impact of that in terms of the warehouse, the entire supply chain is a very different ballgame. Vishesh, the supply chain is a sum total, is a combination of multiple moving parts, right? And suddenly, when this whole chain comes to a grinding halt, you have all these sub parts halted at their respective places. right? Imagine multiple deliveries. Imagine hundreds and thousands of deliveries happening, and suddenly this whole chain comes to a grinding halt across the country, across states, wherein your personnel, your merchandise, all stuck at different aspects. How have you seen that happening during COVID, and what kind of a challenge did it pose to you in ShipRocket in general?
Fair enough. Yeah. So at ShipRocket, as you know, we aggregate, right? So the platform
Yeah.
includes partners like everyone, including Delivery, Blue Dart, FedEx, and going down to Lalamove or Dunzo or Swiggy stores as well, right? So we aggregate everyone on one platform. The challenge was, I'll take it in two parts, right? Pre-COVID, right? At the day we went into lockdown, there were over 500,000 shipments in transit, right? So first step, the first thing that happened was all those shipments were now stuck in some place or the other, right? So now the challenges are like overstocked warehouses. People are not prepared to stock all those products, right? No, none of the supply chain companies are prepared to stock because they always assume 30% will be stocked and 70% will be delivered. So none of the warehouses are prepared to stock. That was one problem. So the moment now the warehouses are overstocked and the government says you are allowed to do essential commodity deliveries, the warehouses are not prepared to do that because they're already in a stress of managing the overflow of stock they already have. So space issues were one. Second thing that happened that was very important was the entire cash on delivery, because India is obviously a cash on delivery economy, and the entire cash on delivery for SMEs, and I represent SMEs, of course, from users doing less than 100 shipments going upwards of 200,000 shipments a month. People had their money stuck in various courier partners because now inventory is stuck, the cash is stuck, people were not planned in terms of cash flows. These are two problems. In terms of how we dealt with that, I think there were twofold solvings. One, we actually had some kind of special approvals taken where when the trucks were allowed, we ended up, taking special permissions to move the backlog. So the trucks were moved across the country in terms of just moving the backlog of transit material and delivering it back to the seller's warehouse so that there was enough space to clear up and start, delivering the new essential commodities. So there was a 2-day, 48-hour window that we received. We couldn't do everything, but yeah, some amount of shipments were moved back to sellers in terms of return to sellers. So that was one problem solved. Second was, I think there was a large initiative in terms of cash flows and lending, digital lending that was initiated, where we went ahead and partnered with a lot of people to actually enable some amount of digital lending and cash flow and invoice discounting products to all the SMEs, which could actually help them, go through the months that their cash is stuck. And cash is still stuck. It's nothing has changed in the last 42 days. It is still stuck. So yeah, lending was one more initiative that helped SMEs in terms of, just getting their salaries up and getting. And coming to essential delivery, I think that we have seen a very large trend in terms of when we launch essential commodities on the platform. Of course, there are formalities. You have to sign a declaration. You have to give me no objections that I will not ship anything apart from essentials, and there's a small paperwork attached to it. But once that is done, so when we launch essentials on the platform, day zero, only a couple of hundred orders moved out because SMEs were not prepared, the passes were not out, people were not allowed to open their warehouses, and there were other district level problems where even if the government says you can, the district authorities does not the local administration does not get the point. They can't make the distinction between a warehouse that has two category of products. So that problem took some time, but I think as entrepreneurs, they are the most versatile species. Everyone adapted in less than 7 days, and those couple of hundred orders swiftly moved up to like thousands of orders per day. I think overall, what we have seen is, and that's my personal take also, I think e-commerce would be the most safest way to get people what they need. And why I say that is, whenever you go out shopping, right, even at that minimal time, you are in contact with at least 20 people minimum, right? You can say, yeah, we are following social distancing and stuff, but you still end up, touching the same merchandise, doing all these things. But at a level where digitally, when you're processing, a single warehouse can ship out thousands of products with less than 5-7 people workforce, right? So they can ship out thousands of products. So we are still working around that. But yeah, that was the challenges. I think I've answered those questions for you.
And from a warehouses perspective, Vishesh, do you own the warehouses? Do you own the?
We do not. No, we do not own the warehouses. We have one warehouse out of Bangalore, but yeah, that is shut. So we only rely on sellers' warehouses. So we did help them, get their passes to open up their warehouses and some facilitation from our end, whatever we could do. But yeah, the warehouses still belong to the sellers.
Or it could be a 3PL or a 4PL player, right?
Yes,
Who's just
it
got
could be.
warehouses.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, because it's kind of as if the whole chain is frozen in time, and then it slowly starts moving around. And coming to you, Ishu, from a Truck Suvidha perspective, you are a marketplace which kind of facilitates deliveries and movement of goods, and you're an online platform, right, for
Yes.
truckers?
Yes.
Okay, and so how did things change for you once the lockdown was announced?
So before COVID, we were doing somewhere around 2,000 shipments on daily basis, where these are the all intercity logistics movement.
And were these same day deliveries, or these could be multi-day
No,
deliveries?
these are the kind of long hauls where above than 300 kilometers kind of range, somewhere taking around 5 to 7 days of time for the delivery. So the moment lockdown was announced, every truck was stopped where it was, and people start saying that there is a lot of losses and all. And into the initial days of lockdown, there was some weather changes as well into different parts. So I remember a few of the truckers were carrying cement for the industries. So they were stuck somewhere, and it was raining as well.
Raining.
So there was a huge loss in terms of to the material which was being transported. So these were the scenarios which started coming into the initial days of lockdown. Even at that time, we like step up for them, for the whole community, trucking community, where we go with the central government and identify these movement of the trucks, because these were the things which not even coming into the essential goods, and they have said that none of the movement will be done for the non-essential supplies. But even if, let's say, assume a situation, a 30 metric ton trailer is carrying a lot of cement with that, and if it's raining again and again, then all the material is lost and it needs to be dumped. So that kind of losses were being there.
So Truck Suvidha is more of an aggregation of truckers, or do you go beyond that?
So we are purely onto the aggregation model, but for helping the community, we go beyond that as well. We help truck drivers, we help their families as well. Even if they are facing any kind of problem, they can connect with Truck Suvidha. Even into the lockdown movement, the people who were not associated with us, even if they were facing any kind of problem related to the movements, passes, stuck, or if any of the local authorities making some issues like beating up the truck drivers and all. So we resolved such kind of trucks. So I believe till date we have resolved more than 4,500 altogether cases which we received from these truck drivers all across the country. Most of the cases were related to the authorities only. That's a sad part, but still try to resolve them. Apart from that, coming on to the industrial part of movement, a lot of movement is stuck because manufacturers are shut down, no movement from warehouses and all, only e-commerce and essentials are moving. But we start getting a lot of orders from mandis, APMCs, agriculture produce marketplaces, as well as farmers. So like the essential commodities which needs to be moved a lot, and that is where we are helping farmers directly to connect with the fleet owners. One more scenario change which we have seen into the initial days of lockdown was the differential into the pricing of the freight rates, which was like more than, I believe, 100%. The freight rates which were somewhere around Nasik to Delhi was around 2,000 rupees per ton, has shoot up to somewhere around 7,000 rupees per ton. So this was also the scenario into the initial days.
So, Vishesh, coming to you, I mean, was there a change in the rate? Did the rates hike up because of the situation?
Well, in the first 30 days, no. I think even in today's time, only one or two partners have introduced something called a COVID cess within their prices. But yeah, we haven't seen. Not everyone has gone ahead and increased the prices for us at least. It is only one or two courier partners who have actually introduced something like that.
Okay, so if I were to speak, conceptually, then would Truck Suvidha be a kind of a partner to you
Absolutely.
in your kind of a business model? Okay,
absolutely.
Okay. So coming to you, Anirudh, what parts of the supply chain is owned by Spencer's Retail?
So in Spencer's supply chain and Richard Busk's supply chain, we have 4 legs. So one is the planners. So planners are the heads. So they are most of the guys who are from ISB and I am statistician. So they do the demand planning, variance. They manage the algorithm. Second piece is the replenishment guys. So the replenishment guys are actually the bridge between the suppliers, the distribution centers, and the stores across geography. The third leg are the distribution centers. And the fourth leg is a small team who are the master data, who manages the 14, 15 hygiene parameter algorithm for say 1.5 lakhs line side combination. So these are all legs actually managed by us. The transportation itself, though the vehicles are from the third party, but these are all dedicated vehicles. So even that's also managed by us. So
do you own the DCs?
Supply chain is managed by us.
So you own the distribution center. You own the distribution center.
So the leased property, but we run it.
You run it, okay. And so how does stuff move from the vendor to the distribution center?
So we have an auto replenishment model, which runs on many parameters. And from there, the purchaser moves directly to to the supplier, and then the suppliers, manufacturers, 30% of probably of them are direct, and balance are through distributor mode. They supply us to our distribution center. And few dark store, because we also have our dot-in model, which is
dark
significant.
Store, yeah.
So both the places, in dark store and in my ambient distribution center, both the places it comes from the manufacturer and their distributors.
And and in the case of Nature's Basket, for example, it's a pure play grocery, high-end grocery retail stores. So are all the Nature's Basket stores open during the lockdown? Were all of them open during the lockdown? I mean, of course, assuming that it's a green area.
So touchwood again, all of my 11 distribution center was not shut for a single day in last 50 days. For stores, which are 196 stores, yes, they are on and off, because though we are not getting directly hit, the catchment is getting hit, and we are closely working with authorities and maintaining all the guidelines. So that way, the supply chain is pretty steady. Yes, it's in a normally say we used to deal with some 12,000 food articles. I'm not talking of non-food articles. Now probably we are dealing with around 7,000 articles. But it's running. It's not that 300, 400 essentials only available in Spencer's or Nature Basket. It's large part, almost 70% of the assortments are still available in any of my stores.
And has the cost of fulfillment gone up because the cost of supply chain distribution partners, I mean, in terms of them hiking up the prices, has the cost of fulfillment gone up for you, or is it as per the contracted rate?
See, for the March question, initially few cost has gone up, but as the throughput also came down, so overall as a percentage of sale, the fulfillment cost for the month, I will have introduced also guy gets impacted in my distribution center. The entire team has to go for a quarantine. So we have a new split shift where nobody is meeting with each other. So it's a complete change of way that is helping us to maintain the cost as of now. Apart from few supplies like interstate between say Chennai to Bangalore or say Hyderabad to Vijayawada, balance are very steady. In North India, East India, it's very steady.
Okay. Now, coming to you, coming to you, Ishu. From a trucker, obviously you talked about this earlier as well. In terms of at any given point in time, there are multiple trucks in any of the highways or the roads of India. Subject to vagaries of nature, some of them had issues. But what do you think could have been better in terms of the supply chain structure within this country, which could have mitigated a lot of these problems?
So for this particular thing, like lockdown was the scenario which was supposed to be done. That's completely fine. But like what I've seen into this particular situation, the orders which were being passed from the center level but were not being followed at the ground level. That was the huge problem what I've seen. Even like there are a lot of trucks which were empty and in transit, they were not being allowed to move. So let's say if a truck is moving from Delhi to Mumbai, now he has to come back to his starting location to at least either park it off or to get it like to be available for the further loads as well. So into that particular situation, the huge problem which was faced by these guys, like when the trucker is not like every trucker is dependent on drivers, and if they are not having anything with them, they have cash with them for 3-4 days, maximum 5 days, 7 days, not more than that. And some of the truckers were stuck up to 30th of March in that particular scenario what we have seen, and they were ran out of cash, and local authorities were like creating a lot of issues with them. So if local authorities were passing the like following the orders in a proper way or helping them instead of making like treating it as an opportunity to make more money out of into with the truck drivers, that would have been great. Even right now, there is a huge problem where local authorities are creating a lot of problem to the truck drivers while they are moving the empty trucks with them. So even some part of the different countries, I will not say the name, they are not allowing, like they are saying you are not carrying any goods after returning onto the return journey. They are saying you are not allowed to move, just park the truck somewhere into the parking location or something like that. So this is creating a huge problem for the fleet owners to get the drivers onboarded and make them understand that you should move the goods and you have pass and everything. So pass says that you can move the essential goods, but you cannot move the empty truck after unloading the things. So that is one of the.
So, yeah, I hear your issue, and it's more of a procedural, more of an administrative thing, where the whole thing could have been probably thought out a bit more better. But coming to you, Shashank, while administrative issues in terms of policy decisions taken, they could have definitely been better, taking into account some of the worst case scenarios that were around. But from a structural perspective, right? Do you think some things could have been done, or something should have been there? Let's assume. So just taking the analogy of a lift, right? You are inside a lift in a large, let's say, high rise of 30-40 floors. If there is a power breakage anywhere, the lift goes to the nearest floor. I mean, in a typical scenario, right? I don't think that safety net was there for any component of the supply chain, in this scenario. So how do we build that safety net? I mean, what's happened in COVID? The fact that supply chain was frozen in time, it's all fine. But henceforth, God forbid, should another instance of such a pandemic hit us, what do you think can be done from a structural perspective that that will kind of help us alleviate some of the problems that we're talking about?
Yeah, so logistics or supply chain in large has always been an unfragmented market in India. In recent time, we have seen a lot of tech companies coming into the segment and really improving the entire supply chain experience, even for a small enterprise, right? So unlike Truck Suvidha, Lala Move or Wizard is a hyper-local intra-city logistic companies. We are mostly rely on bikers, right? The immediate challenge which we have seen that authorities were not allowing these bikers to go in the market. Even we have seen on the news channel that a Swiggy guy who's delivering the food, the policeman used to stop them. Though the policeman know that he's going to deliver food, but he's still not aligned with uh, the authorities' message that he have received from his seniors. So the immediate challenge that we have seen that we have to stop everything on front the moment the lockdown happened. And after approaching the authorities and the moment we got permission to run our business for essential commodities, again, not all the authorities member are aligned to the same sort of a protocol. Even though we had a pass, but at every check naka, there was a policeman who used to stop the bikers to check the same pass. So that was the immediate challenge. That definitely irritated. Yeah.
Again, Shashank, that's very procedural. That's very administrative. It's a function of that policeman on the spot at that point in time. You could find a benevolent policeman who will probably leave him. Then you could find a crook who will try to extract the maximum out of it. But so what I was trying to understand is, and probably we could have been great if we had a 3PL or a 4PL guy here along with us. But if I could just move focus to Vishesh, if we were to face this kind of a crisis in a slightly better structural manner, how is it that we can build a safety net? Can we look at 3PLs and 4PLs upping their game and kind of spattering the entire country with a whole lot of warehouses where a trucker could reach out and at least get safely docked? The problem is a lot of these trucks get stranded on the highways itself. The drivers they run out of working capital. They don't have monies, and so it's a lose-lose game everywhere. So how do you think an Indian supply chain ecosystem can bring itself up? And I'll come to Anirudh after this, getting his perspective as a consumer of these services. So how do you think supply chain in this country can get a bit more resilient and create a fairly good safety net, to minimize the negatives of such a pandemic?
Fair enough. So, Siju, I'll break it down into 3 layers. One is the first mile pickup,
Sure.
then the in transit, and then the last mile, right? I think there's a lot of learnings to be taken from countries like China, who dealt with it in a much better fashion than either of the countries have done, right? Even the most stronger of the countries. And we did had a lot of conversations with companies in China, startups in China, logistics companies, warehousing companies, sellers. So we share portfolio companies. So there was a lot of interactions happening across companies, right? So what I understood from them was there were few actions taken on each of the step, right? The step 1, I think there was a very strong education and training initiative across logistics players that was done. So for pickup, so first mile pickup, there was a very solid process that was put in place where whenever a pickup is happening, the users are now equipped with sanitization stuff. They are equipped with sprayers. They're equipped with everything. So whenever they go for a pickup, they were making sure that every packet is sanitized before they enter the truck. They were equipped with PPEs, so their safety was taken care of. So that gives them some comfort to be come to work and continue working. Now, on the warehousing side, I think there was a lot of automation that was put in place. Of course, it's different in Indian supply chain perspective where we still lack on technologies and other things. But yeah, there are things that still could have been done, right? In terms of the empty spaces outside the warehouses. So now, during the lockdown, your roads are empty, your spaces are empty, your parking lots are empty, right? So they adapted quickly. The parking lots were used as an extended storage spaces where makeshift tents were put in to ensure that there are people are now distanced, right? Now there were makeshift tents across their warehouses and their parking lot. That extended the space immediately because there are no people coming in. Now that's another thing that was done. On the last mile side as well, there were innovative stuff happening, and I'm talking about the consumer side. In last mile side, there were PUDO model. So PUDO is where I can drop off all my local locality parcels onto one particular shop or a location where every individual can come and pick up their parcels. In those scenarios, those PUDO locations were equipped with sanitization equipment. So all the parcels, for example, for one society or one neighborhood, there were 100, 200 parcels. They could be delivered to the nearest neighborhood shop. That guy is now responsible to sanitize all packets. Now, even if you want to go and pick up those particular orders, you can't just go anytime you want. Everyone can not go every time they want. Now, if my packet is lying on my PUDO, I have a mobile app. I have to now log into the app, book a time. I will get a 10-minute slot to go and pick up my particular product. So now I have the 10-minute window. And the mobile app ensures that the same window is not given to more than one person at a time. Now you're kind of operationalizing and educating all these layers in the process, ensuring that people are still getting their products what they need in a most safest manner possible, right? And the whole process where people are stuck in transit, I think that's very unfortunate for our country because the processes and the information flow is a very broken, right? Even on official handles, there is some information coming in, and 2 hours later they retract that information. There's a circular 123A, circular 123B. They are changing information in hourly basis. Where one time there was a news after 21st of April, where essentials, non-essentials are now allowed. Within 2 to 3 hours, that was taken back, saying not allowed. So I think information flow from central government to local authorities is most important and crucial at this point. I think there were simple steps.
Vishesh, I'll interrupt you here because I think almost everyone is complaining about the procedural inefficiencies and the fact that the flow doesn't happen. So is there a central body that can, for example, let's the Retailers Association of India, right? They've done a fantastic job in terms of working with the government on multiple aspects in terms of, trying to tell them as to what should be allowed, what probably should not be allowed, the do's and don'ts, giving them a heads up in terms of the dangers of lockdown continuing and so on and so forth. But from a supply chain perspective, is there a body which can liaise with the government and kind of help in drafting these things? Because we also need to understand that a lot of these would be, reactions where we do not have the luxury of time. And with a completely heterogeneous geopolitical mix that we have in our country through multiple states, it almost becomes impossible to figure out a sense of directives which will make everyone happy. Someone's going to be unhappy. So is there a central body which can work on that? Is there a central body which is there, or do you think it should be structured so that they can work with the government on it?
I think there wasn't up till the lockdown started. But immediately post that, I think a lot of people took the initiative, brought everyone together onto a WhatsApp group. There was everything, the information flow. 3 to 4 people took the initiative to liaise with the government on behalf of all the supply chain partners. And that really helped, where all the entrepreneurs came together, where we had a meeting with the DCP, we went up, arranged passes, made a process with working with local district level DCPs. So it wasn't there up till that, but I think people quickly adapted to that because there was a need for smaller amount of group to represent a larger group. That quickly happened.
So then I think, what should probably happen is, experts like you all should actually get together and figure out a way to build up a body, or work with someone like an RAI, a Retailers Association of India, to kind of, build this up strongly. And, before I come to you, Anirudh, on specifically 2 aspects, let me take a moment and kind of acknowledge a question that's come up in terms of, he seems to have joined in a little late. So folks who've joined in a little late, let me just reintroduce the panel to you once again. We have Mr. Anirudh Banerjee, who is Executive Committee Member and Vice President, Supply Chain Management, Head of Supply Chain Planning and Logistics at Spencer's Retail. We have Vishesh Khurana, who is a co-founder for ShipRocket, an e-commerce shipping aggregation solution. We have Shashank Srivastav, who is ex-Lalamove, and now he's in a stealth mode. He's an entrepreneur who's going to get something very, very interesting to us in the near term. And last but not the least, we have Vishu Bansal, who is the co-founder for Truck Suvidha, a marketplace for the transport industry, right? So this is for people who joined us late. Now, Anirudh, coming back to you, I was interested in figuring out, okay, how do we make things better in this country so that we can face this kind of a pandemic better? Vishesh kind of lined out 3 aspects. One is pickup, second is in transit, and third is last mile delivery. He didn't talk about storage. I want to talk about storage and packaging to you, Anirudh, because you deal with a lot of these categories. Now, I was hosting a session with a couple of food aggregators and technology folks from apparel companies about a couple of days back, and they were talking of secondary and tertiary packing. Secondary packing in terms of food items, and tertiary packing in terms of, let's say, something like an apparel or any consumer durable for that matter, or any CPG product for that matter. How are you? You are a retailer, so how are you approaching it? From a storage perspective, what do you think can be done to have created a response to such a scenario frictionless, or with a lesser impact than what it was today?
As the subject is Black Swan event, and we have all learned over a period of last 30 days. Now, from those 30 days learning actually tells me if what we require for such future impact. So these are low occurrence, unlike we are habituated with frequent occurrence, low impact. So may look for a dashboard kind of a thing. We will talk about, and whatever I am mentioning now, we have gone through that process in last 2-3 weeks and we have navigated. But that actually calls for a lot of time, lot of personal initiative. Those are not process driven. So we may look for a dashboard which will have all DM's contact number. We may look for a dashboard which will define with a click of a button all the containment zone. We may look for a dashboard which will talk about vehicle movement, which will have very process oriented updated circular and only the necessary portion of it. All of you knows what I am actually talking. We may need for a dashboard at a industry level segregated into categories like for agri, packaged foods, logistics separately. Within logistics also bikers separately, phone or 7 separate data will be better prepared, and obviously for us retailers RAI has helped. But you are right, Seju, from the supply chain industry perspective, probably we don't have a single face to the government, both GOI and the state. So we may look for a body which actually can represent across sector. Now coming to your second part of the question, where you are talking of the primary, tertiary packaging and the expectation. Because we are before this pandemic, we used to cater almost 3.5 million shoppers per month. The way we see more than anything, trust, the word trust will play the biggest important role for any kind of consumer interface for at least next 2 quarters. Now, how do we build that trust? As a single player, as an interface between manufacturer and the consumer, probably I will not be able to. So this is also a supply chain for me. How I can take and how I think this is coming from such and such, certified by such and such thing, carried by transporter, who is also a certified such and such, and then Spencer's and Nature Basket warehouse certified by such and such, and the front end store where consumer is actually experiencing the steps which you have taken, starting from basic temperature control. You go to any Spencer Nature Basket store, you can see this happening, which talks about mask, hand sanitizer, temperature, social distancing, limited consumer. So only in-store experience we may not help to build up that trust. It's an end-to-end, and when I'm saying in-store, I'm also talking about my .com business, which is significantly high right now. The last mile delivery, and there's this very different parameters for the riders and the delivery guys. This transaction, because what we are saying now, previously in the industry, it was all about marketeers, right, and the sales guy. And the buzzword when you grew up was Jo Bikta Hai, Wo Bikta. But in last 3 weeks, India is saying Jo Milta Hai, and this will stay. So Jo Milta Hai, along with trust factor, will surely win the market both for product and services. This is what we are experiencing. Over to you, Steve.
No, I understand that, Anirudh, and completely aligned with you. In fact, what I have seen during this pandemic is, and having spent about 25 years in this industry, is, we are all talking about customer engagement. We always talk about marketing. We always talk about, lovely, brilliantly visually merchandised stores and so on and so forth. But two seemingly, bland aspects of retail. One, which was employee engagement, and second, supply chain. Now, these two have suddenly become the most important parameters in running business today, right? I mean, employee has suddenly become the core, right? Even when stores reopen after COVID, a lot depends on the employee who is engaging with, with the consumer. And Anirudh, you brought out a very, very important aspect of trust. Now, what's going to happen probably is just like, hotels have the stars, 5 stars, 4 stars, 7 stars category. The industry as such will probably evolve a system to have a hygiene rating, right? There could be a possibility of, because, for example, let's say Anirudh, the Nature's Basket store in Lower Parel in Bombay has a 5-star rating, hygiene rating. Another grocery brand might have a 4-star hygiene rating, and this could be on multiple and set parameters. And this is where I come to you, issue. When it comes to truckers, you obviously are a very crucial element in terms of moving the goods. So how will you, as one of the front runners in this industry, ensure that the hygiene factor is at its highest level and can contribute to an overall hygiene factor of 5 to, let's say, Anirudh's store in Lower Parel? How do you, because everything cascades, right? Everything is dependent on the other. Things are no longer going to be in silos, right? The way a stuff is packaged in the manufacturing facility, right up to, and with the pickup point, like Vishesh mentioned, how does he pick up from the pickup point? How does he load onto a trucker from trucksuvidha.com, right? And then how does he manage that entire transition, that journey, till it reaches Anirudh's store, right? So hygiene as a factor becomes extremely important. Obviously, employee is an integral part of it. So what are the steps that you're taking, issue, in terms of ensuring that, these will be of the highest standards, even post-COVID?
Okay. So for this particular thing, team is already working onto this particular thing, where generally the trucking industry, we come into the picture for the movement part of the truck rather than the loading and getting the trucks, unloading it at the destination. So generally there are 2 people into the trucks. One is the helper and the driver, and they are following the standards like having a mask, sanitizers and all. Even there are facilities at different petrol pumps as well as dhabas, facility centers all across. Not everyone is providing such, but yes, there are few ones with the help of ITWA, All Indian Transport Welfare Association, where these trucks are being sanitized whenever they are being stopped at these particular facilities. That is one. Apart from that, yes, sanitization is one of the major problem even into the living standards of truck drivers as well. That is also being taken care of. Like into this particular scenarios, while each and every truck driver has strict instructions from their village panchayats that they need to follow the proper safety guidelines, then only they will be welcome back to their villages. So for this particular things, these truck drivers are really cautious about following the these safety guidelines. Apart from that, sanitizers is definitely trucking industry is not being followed. Soaps and hand washing techniques are being explained to them, like 20-second, 30-second hand wash, and then do not touch the face very frequently, even if you are moving up, going on to the material, even not touching the material after it is being loaded. And if it's a kind of container based, so there is no matter. But during the checkpoints and all, while they have to show to the different RTOs like what is the material loaded, after having those particular things, they have a different kind of set of water with them, apart from drinking water, to do the hand wash after each and every check. So currently this is being followed, and I believe post-COVID this will also be a kind of factor which will be there. And apart from that, as you mentioned, that there will be a hygiene factor for the retail stores and all. This is something we already started integrating with the truck drivers as well. Like this is the kind of factor, not into the term we have not given as a hygiene factor, but this is the cleanliness of the truck we have mentioned. So like this kind of truck was cleaned after the material loaded and all sanitized after this. So these are the parameters which are already being taken care. Over to you,
Shashank. Yeah, thanks so much, Ishu. And Shashank, again, something need to evolve from just being a behavioral reaction to current scenario to something which is part of a business process. And that's where, and that's going to define as to how resilient our supply chain is going to be in the post-COVID scenario. So what do you think are the aspects that, folks, experts in the supply chain arena should actually take up to ensure that these behavioral reactions of today turn out to be standard operating procedures of tomorrow?
Well, sure. So we definitely need to have a standardized SOP in all the legs of a supply chain. We should follow the standards of like international level standards. So if we talk about first mile, there should be a different sort of SOP. When we talk about the middle mile, there should be a different set of SOP to be followed. When it comes to last mile, there should be a different set of SOPs. If we talk about the last mile specifically, because the riders and the delivery guys are going to interact with human, in any case, there should be a strict SOP to be followed for the safety of consumer and for the safety of our driver partners. To follow that, we have taken some measures. Every driver who's coming to warehouse for a pickup must sanitize their vehicle first. We have facilitated these sort of services. So they have to sanitize their vehicle, they have to sanitize themselves. Then there's a PPE kit, they have to wear that before entering to the warehouse. And the moment they load up their bags and the moment they leave the warehouse, they again sanitize themselves. Again, when they head to the customer place for the deliveries, we have a strict policy of not hitting on a door. They will go to the gate. They will submit all the parcels on the gate desk itself. As you know that we are not working on a COD sort of a thing for time being. It's all a prepaid for the COVID time. But yeah, post COVID, we have to take a strict measure to handle these sort of issues where people have to collect cashes from driver partner or driver partner have to collect the cash. Then there is a handling. So we have to take a strict measure when a driver partner is going to interact with customer to smooth at least the last mile leg, which is more exposed when it comes to supply chain. Yeah, the same thing with the first mile and same thing with the middle mile. Yeah. So yeah.
So in a way, I think this particular scenario, this particular pandemic has given us a brilliant excuse to actually go digital, right? And we see that in our daily lives as well, right? We all live in housing societies. We procure groceries, we procure vegetables. I'm sure en masse, right? We are now we are not doing an individual purchase anymore, and a lot of the payments are actually digital payments, right? Folks who did not even have a Paytm account or even a Google Pay account, so now they have a Google Pay account and they know how to make the payment. Correct. So I think we should reduce the dependence on cash, because all said and done, that remains a very viable vector, even when we are in a relatively safer zone, and we could do that. Now, coming to you, Anirudh, I see you've had a change of the background. So, Anirudh, while all this is nice, right? I mean, everyone's going to wash their hands. Everyone's going to be sanitized. Trucks are going to get better. There's obviously one element, which is a cost element. Now, the cost of doing business could go up. Now, does that mean that the cost of merchandise is going to go up? Are we going to see pricier products on your shelves, Anirudh?
There are two parts of it. One is about the cost of business. Now, obviously, the cost of sanitizer, cost of split shift, cost of other safety measures needs to be built up in the network. But does it mean it will be passed on to the consumer? Answer is probably no, because we are in an MRP-driven regime, and the commodities prices are still defined by the big market forces. So whenever I will get into my .com, obviously the other large players in the market, the price benchmarking probably is not happening for 2-3 weeks and will not happen for next couple of weeks. But consumers, the price competitiveness will never go from the market. So it's not a question of whether the product will be expensive or cheap. It will stay competitive. and that competitive price will be determined by the market force. No going around from that. So then the question which is still unanswered is how do we absorb that additional cost? And there probably all the supply chain players has to play a major role in terms of driving efficiency. And how do we drive that efficiency? Probably a player who was handling with say 10,000 SKU and the tail was 30% of that, and probably the range was a statement. Does consumer look for that range today, or consumer is looking for the basic product? When I'm saying basic, again, I'm not talking of 300, 400, I'm talking 5,000, 6,000, right? These are the big business model changes. From your brand positioning has to come out. It cannot be a standalone supply chain decision. Because if you are known for range, then how do you change that positioning? If you are known for only price, how do you change your positioning? And when I'm saying not only from product perspective, also from the service perspective. Maybe one transporter is the largest national transporter. So he was playing on his brand. But probably today, tomorrow, the new startups or the existing startups will come up with more efficient positioning because they can change the business model faster than him. So to my understanding, cost as a proportion of the sale will remain same. And water will find its own balance over a period of time. Only thing the players who will not be able to readjust their business model. When I'm saying business model, it's all legs of the cost, all service parameters. Probably they will figure it out little difficult, but there are players who will do it very efficiently.
No, thanks, Anirudh. I mean, I appreciate that level of water will find its own level, and market forces will ensure that prices remain competitive. My question to you was primarily because Spencer's has a fair percentage of private labels within their portfolio, right? So within your portfolio. But you're right, it's an aggregation of all the efforts and all the investments made by every part of the supply chain. So as a last aspect to touch upon, what role do you think technology will play? So let me start with Vishesh out here. So what role do you think technology will play? We've heard Anirudh, talk about multiple dashboards, which will give him a visibility in terms of how safe the environment is, in terms of being able to do business as usual. Apart from that, what are the other technology elements that could come into play, which could help supply chain become much more resilient than what it is today?
I think technology will have to play a much larger role. We live in a world of mass media, so information, training, process, implementation, it's all going to be technology, right? That's going to play a vital role here. When it comes to the only way to deal with the problem, even if you are a small company or a large organization or a government, is you set up a process, you train people to follow the process, then you monitor it if it's following or not, and then you make changes as and when required due to the process to improve that. That's the only way you make a larger amount of people, follow a protocol. I think to ensure that technology supply chain will have to have their own Arogya Setu kind of thing, right? Which in terms of having every individual in the process will need to come onto the same panel or a dashboard or a system where if there is announcements to be made, if there are steps to be taken, if there are actions to be taken, if simple steps like even helping if some user is found positive or he's facing some issue with authority, if he can pass on that information back up the chain, and that individual or the trucking guy cannot do that in today's world where the information doesn't come up, he still stays stuck. I think all of this, we need to put up systems and train people to use them in order to make sure that one, information is passed on and actions are taken in a simple format, where even I think Swiggy's and Zomato are doing the same thing, where they have their rider apps now have SOS and other kind of functionalities where in order to, if the rider is stuck, if he's arrested, if he's whatever reason, right, he has a way to communicate back up to their, liaison channel or the whole, there's a small department. So even at ShipRocket, we have a small department within the company that is only set up to ensure that to help people or staff members in order to wherever they need help. That could be even to the smallest angle if they need ration and they're in red zone and they need some kind of material to be processed and get to their houses. So at larger scale, we can do that. We can help them and get their whatever they need. I think that needs to be followed on a larger scale, where getting people on one panel is the most important field today, and then adopting and making sure they all use the same thing and follow the process there.
Yeah, in fact, good you mentioned it, Vishesh, because this is something that I touched upon with a couple of folks the other day, and that's more in terms of a help center for all the employees in the supply chain, right? Because they could be truckers, there could be issues truckers who are not educated, who have a very base level of understanding in terms of hygiene. There could be some extremely educated folks in the logistics business. They could be middle of the road, two-wheeler drivers who are doing the last mile delivery. So you have the entire spectrum of people involved in this discipline, and that is where probably a help center actually helps, right? Because not only from a perspective of following hygiene standards, but also from the perspective of mental health. Because all said and done, this does play on their minds as well, right? You're asking a trucker to drive a truck into an area. He's going to a green zone, but he's probably driving through a red zone for all you know. We don't know that, and there's so much of uncertainty there. So issue from an app perspective.
I'll just add one quick thing there. Sorry.
Yeah, Vishesh.
One quick thing there. I think it's more important not just on a company level, because as small companies, the cost might not justify to have a dedicated liaisoning person who can liaison with the authorities. But it is more feasible if all the supply chain companies come together and share resources, right? Shiprocket is in Delhi. Our head office is in Delhi. We could have a office or small department in Delhi that can be shared across supply chain companies, right? Where information could be passed on, and we are in Delhi, we can help supply chain employees stuck in Delhi. And similarly, if maybe Shashank is in a different country, part of the country, we can all together pool resources and do this on a national.
You just spoke my mind, Vishesh. This is where I was talking about creating a shared resources facility, spread across the country. It need not be that, it's my warehouse, it's my set of people. It's about, you catering to your industry in, let's say, Northeast, South, and West. Let's break it down by 4 regions to simplify matters, and then break it down further and create a safety net for yourself, which takes into account all that we've discussed in the last 90 minutes, right? Or last 75 minutes. And that's very important. And I'm glad that you brought this up, Vishesh. And I'm sure everyone else, Anirudh, Ishu, and Shashank, you are also on the same page when it comes to this. You will do your part in terms of creating that safety net, or creating a set of facilities which will help, at least provide the framework for a common minimum system to come up. Right? We cannot always depend on the government to do it, or cannot always depend on another party to do it.
Actually, as individuals, you can't do it alone, right? You'll have to have a national coverage. You can't have a national coverage for a company that is less than 50 employees, 100 employees. You need to share resources.
Absolutely. Shashank, you wanted to share something on this?
Yeah, sure. So I'm totally inclined what Vishesh have said. And apart from that, what we can also do, if we talk about technology, Lalamove is a technology company, right? And that the entire operation runs on a technology. We have an app like Arogya Setu. Why can't we do one thing, whether we can integrate this sort of application with the enterprise applications? Absolutely. Rider is running on the ground. If Arogya Setu is connected with their enterprise application, we can track that, whether the driver has been in the containment zone or not, whether he has been infected with anyone who is infected or not for this COVID thing only, but for the future thing. So technology can really play a crucial part, and definitely we can work on that area. That reminds a great to work on a great idea. Surely.
No, absolutely. I mean, today it's COVID. Tomorrow it could be another trigger point, right?
Exactly.
It could be just about anything, and that's one thing that we realize.
I think one thing we have learned the hard way is don't wait for anything else to come up. I think it's more important. It's your defense budget, right? You're prepared for war. Why not be prepared for something like this? It's as good as that, right? Nothing could have stopped the world.
Absolutely. This is nothing less than war, right? And this is nothing. And with zero strategic planning, right? I mean,
we need to have a plan to deal with it.
I'll add to this. few months back when we have a CA protest sort of a thing across India, and the moment we get to know about any news happening in certain area, we used to call all the drivers to not go in that area. If we can have a technology in a way that we can inform the driver through the application itself, could have been a better way of communication. So yeah, we definitely need some sort of a communication tool.
No, absolutely. In fact, I work very closely with a company that delivers customer engagement on WhatsApp. And the reason why I work very closely with them is we realized that while you could have an app, you could have a website, with the propensity of the last mile customer to actually open up the app, fire up the app, or go to the website and check for things is very, very low. While we spend about 85% of our time on WhatsApp, right? And so yeah, there are ways to deal with it. Anirudh, you have 3 people with you today who form a crucial part of your supply chain. What do you think they could have done better to make your life easier in the past few weeks? I mean, they as in not they specifically, but they have been part of that ecosystem. They're all yours.
What that industry actually has faced in terms of related, whatever in the unprecedented situation we are facing last 3-4 weeks are all related to human. Now, probably as a contingency plan, as we heard, we are talking of plan A, plan B. Similarly, those are specific or say place or geography specific. Now, from people perspective, what are our plan A, plan B, plan C, plan, thought process that needs to come in the forefront. Whenever I look at my planning or my supplier planning or my partners planning in terms of logistics or warehouse, they are all related to some physical limitation. It can be a warehouse, it can be a vehicle or something, whatever, because we always took people as granted. I'm not talking of the employee, our own employee, but the third party who are not on payroll. So what's our plan? So as we are in future, if we can map them better to technology, then probably our possibilities of bouncing back with minimal time will increase in many fold.
And so, yeah, and it kind of helps you also.
That's a key learning for me and our partners.
Okay. So for Shashank, Ishu, and Vishesh, what do you think? The end consumers like a retail chain like Spencer's or Nature's Basket could have done to make your life a little better? Any one of you can.
Well, that's very interesting. Go on, Vishesh.
I don't think they need to do anything better in terms of that. I think only thing one needs to do now, and we have seen that already happening with the largest of FMCG players that have reached out to us in the last 25 days, including the largest beverage player saying that we want to deliver at home. I think everyone needs to adopt to the new normal. Post-COVID as well, offline retail will still have challenges. People, there is a psychological impact as well, where even when things go away, the fear doesn't. So I think that will still have that. Home deliveries are going to be the new normal. Work from homes are going to be the new normal. I think Zoom meetings are going to be the new normal, and that's not something that's going away in the next 20 days. It's here for a while now, and we need to now adapt to it, get used to it, and make our processes better in terms of making sure that our business has to happen. So now everyone needs to adapt, making sure that your resources are now geared up as much as they were geared up towards the offline processes. Now they need to be implemented for the online business as well, where inventories and catalogs and stuff needs to be available, updated. Pickups, packaging needs to happen on time. So stores need to be now more prepared to fulfill the online demand, because people will prefer on home deliveries much more than they used to. And we have seen that. We have seen a larger shift in the unique online buyer, because we also aggregate buyers, the data patterns could be seen, where people we have never seen. There's a large repeat of online buyers. There are 20-30 million online buyers that already are unique. there's been a doubling of that number in the last 40 days, where unique buyers have been added to the system. People are looking at home deliveries. Second problem is because of the whole supply chain impact, the whole availability of produce in local neighborhood shops is not fully there, right? They might have some things, they don't have other things, right? But each individual has their own preferences. So a larger inventory availability can only happen by, making sure that all the players, larger players, come on to the inventory process where everyone's updating their inventories in a much better fashion.
I really like Vishesh's answer here. You started
I have
being very. Yeah, you sure. Then I'll probably.
So there is a very interesting thing which happened with the FMCG guys, where our transporter used to deliver like associate trucks with them. So earlier they were like they were having a separate guy who was each and every time delivering the PODs to them and collecting the cash and getting the things done. So during this whole COVID situation, like all the PODs and everything, they are checking it online, and there were feedback came, I believe, a week back from that. यार बिना बंदों के भी काम चल सकता है. So we are able to do all these kind of things, like the kind of labor we are putting up and getting more PODs kind of thing, and labor intensive tasks, which not at all required actually. And even the payment structure has been improved a lot into this particular scenario as well, where these companies are paying really good, like a faster payment cycle has been seen during this time.
Yeah, not true. I mean, it's obviously a good benefit of the whole thing, which is faster and more transparent payment cycles moving to digital.
Yes.
So what I was coming for to is, Vishesh started off being very politically correct.
Siju, I will just button. We can wind up in 15 minutes or so. We are almost 1:30. Yeah.
No worries. I'm cognizant of that. Yeah. So then Vishesh kind of very, very nicely said all retailers should get actually omni-channel ready, which is a fact. Because just like the focus came on to digital payments and the fact that you can really automate processes issue, like you mentioned, right? It was almost unbelievable or unthinkable that that part of it. No, you're on mute, Ishu. You're on mute. Yeah, you were saying something. No, you are on mute again.
Hello. No. I was like, I got it. Yes, no issues.
Yeah.
I was on call, so sorry. You please carry on, Siju.
Yeah. So just like some of the processes which were thought to be unthinkable in terms of not having a human intervention, now people have suddenly realized that, hey, without human intervention, things can be done, right? And that's obviously a more efficient way. Moving on to digital payments, folks like Anirudh and his and his team at Spencer's and Nature's Basket, they obviously have come a long way in their omnichannel journey. I am personally aware of it. I worked with Nature's Basket at some point in time and with Spencer's quite some time back. So I guess it's all about this particular pandemic putting pressure on enterprises to become more omnichannel ready, more digital ready, more digital payments ready, and essentially saying that please automate whatever parts of the supply and demand chain you can, because we probably will not get another chance to get right the way we've kind of got it here. We've been pretty agile, thankfully, but yes, there's a long way to go. Now, I'll just take a couple of questions here. One of them is that once lockdown is opened up, how do you plan? Let me read this properly. How do you plan supply chain challenges in the red, orange, and green zones? So what Namrata is asking is, once the lockdown is opened up, obviously lockdown is not opened up for the red zone. I guess lockdowns will be only opened up for the green zone, and business as usual only in the green zones. The orange will have limited activity. Red is of course zero activity apart from the essentials. So how do you plan supply chain? How do you plan to meet supply chain challenges? Is I guess what she's asking. So any inputs from you folks?
Well, I'm not seeing any challenges. I mean, in a large scale with the first mile or the middle mile transitions. But when it comes to last mile, there's going to be a challenge. Again, red zone is going to be shut for time being. We are only allowed to go into green and orange zone, orange with a lot of restrictions. again, so yeah, by saying green zone, it only means city within a transition within a city only, right? By saying orange, it only means a transition between areas to areas. So yeah, they're going to be a lot of challenge if we have to cross those sort of areas. We have to take a extra long, extra routes, or maybe we have to terminate those sort of deliveries, which is coming between those sort of areas. So yeah, there's going to be a challenge, but believing on what we have experienced throughout the time, we will come over these sort of challenges.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of unpredictability right now. Quite
Exactly,
understandable.
exactly.
And imagine, Amazon deliveries are supposed to be very predictable, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Now the beauty of it is last Thursday, last Thursday, I had ordered for a hair trimmer and shaver, which is the most important thing needed these days, and it showed me a delivery date of May 2nd, which is tomorrow. Okay, and this was last Thursday. Then Saturday morning, I get a message saying, "Hey, it will be delivered on Wednesday," which was day before yesterday. Guess when it was delivered? It was delivered on a Monday. I've never seen it fast tracked so fast ever in my life. So it's actually delivered it 6 days before. I have no idea how, but that's the unpredictability part of it.
Exactly.
The last question that we have, and probably issue you can take a stab at it, is how will drivers get to know about the red zone? We talked about Arogya Setu app, how it can be integrated in terms of an information being available to someone like a trucker so that he knows whether to go by that zone or not. But I think a very basic question that someone has asked is, how will drivers get to know about the red zone if drivers are not having a smartphone?
So for this particular thing, all of the transporters are taking care. Even like the aggregators like us are mentioning whenever these guys are entering into a kind of red zone, orange zone, or green zone, it's continuously getting details like showing it live onto the website, apart from the mobile application as well, and sending them the notification, so that the driver who is entering or even passing out the route, so he's just getting a notification whenever he's, let's say, 20-25 kilometers entering the red zone kind of situation, so that he is aware every time, like what.
But how will he get the notification? Through an SMS or through a call? So, or how is
like there are multiple ways. If the guy is having a GPS installed with the help of the geolocation taggings and all, like with the help of tools as well, the notifications are majorly onto the SMS, as well as a automated call to the driver itself, like you are entering a red zone. One more feature we have also incorporated into the existing truckers as well, where there is a speaker installed into the trucks, and it is beeping up in a particular way that whenever the truck is going to enter the red zone area. So that is the kind of measures we have taken. And apart from that, ITWA is also planning for some guidelines for the truck drivers, where the driver will be having some kind of predictable behavior. Even they are risking their lives while they are entering these particular situations, and doing the supply chain, helping the supply chain for the restoration. So one more thing which is also introduced for them is the insurance thing, where even if they are affected with the COVID, all the things, all the family will be taken care by the ITWA, and they will be like, they can rest assured that there will be no problem or no financial issues will be occurring to them in case if there is a issue. Although this is not something which is not of concern, but still there is, at least there is something, but for them.
No, it should be business as usual, because end of the day, today COVID, tomorrow it could be anything else. We really don't know. And on this topic, I used to, when I was at Microsoft some time back, we had actually worked with Vodafone on a large initiative wherein they were figuring out as to how could they impact the supply chain with some better telematics and better information being delivered to the truckers. So I think smartphone is not the only answer. There are multiple ways to make sure that information reaches the truck drivers. So I think that gets us to the end of our discussions. Any last words, gentlemen, from any one of you?
I would like to say a few words to every user who's going to use supply chain after this COVID effect. The urgent need of an hour is a contactless experience. Like, we have to maintain some sort of a contactless experiences between a user and a delivery guy or anyone in large in the supply chain. So at every leg of a supply chain, we have to make sure that there is a contactless experience while delivering the product. So I mean, as a user of any product, of any supply chain, or as a user of a FMCG sort of a thing, I would request to these companies to work on a innovation where they can introduce something which works in a contactless experience. Like if I'm buying something from a retail outlet, it should have a contactless experience, so it can reduce the chances of getting infected, not with the COVID, but maybe something else in future. So yeah, that is something that I'm accepting as a consumer. Yeah.
So Anirudh, any reactions to that? I'm sure you folks are working on making sure that shopping at stores is going to be a very safe and very enjoyable experience.
Yeah, so my statement will be from a larger platform. Till date, at least in FMCG and retail industry, supply chain considered as a support function. And the mainline function was operation and merchandising. In last 3 to 4 weeks, the concept and scenario has completely changed. Supply chain is now a mainline function. So it's much more responsibility for all of us as a supply chain fraternity to see our prepared, because the other functions will become very transactional in the days to come.
Sure. And Ishu, thanks for mentioning in the Q&A part of it the importance of the toll plazas. I think that's a very good point, because the toll plazas are also an important touch point of information dissemination and aggregation of information, or aggregation of services for that matter, right? So things can improve quite a lot on that area as well. So if there's nothing more, would anyone of you want to chip in your last words, or are we good?
Nothing from my side.
Thanks a lot, Siju. It was like really good to have a great panel with us. Lot of insight share. Apart from this, lot of takeaways from this session as well, which can be implemented. Even like a few takeaways can be shared with government as well, which can be incorporated like for the retailers as well as for the last mile thing. So it can be taken care. Like even a lot of we talk about like administration failures and all, but still I believe administration at administrative level, people are working really hard at Invest India and I would say Startup India roles. So they are also trying to bring all the things at the normal level. But the country like us, where everything changes and there are a lot of issues, yes, we require support for everyone at organization level, even at individual level as well. So that is one of the thing which is required.
No, absolutely. And obviously we need to do our bit. We need to do our bit to ensure that this backbone, right, this back muscle of our body, right,
yes,
which is the most ignored muscle amongst all of us, right? And I keep telling folks of my age, I'm 47, I keep saying, it's important that we have this back muscle in the best shape, because if the back muscle decides to give way, then I think we are down, right? We are down and out. So that way, supply chain is very, very crucial, and I'm glad the importance is there on supply chain and it's getting its due. So thank you so much, gentlemen. It was a real pleasure talking to all of you to get your perspectives in terms of what happened in the last 4-5 weeks and and how you're going to prepare yourself and contribute to making a resilient supply chain in India. And we should be ready for it, right? Because we're talking of shifting manufacturing from China to India, and let's go ahead and do it. And for that, supply chain is crucial. Anirudh, thank you so much for joining us here. Shashank, Ishu, and Vishesh, thanks a ton. And I hope you had a good time out here. All the best in your business. Let's together fight this and stay home, stay safe, and take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.